Hello, I'm Harold Munro, Editor-in-Chief at the Sun and Province, and joining me is reporter Glenda Luymes to discuss the municipal election race in Surrey, BC's second largest city. Hi, Glenda.
Hi, Harold.
So you've been talking to people about the results of a new Leger poll conducted exclusively for the Province and the Sun that surveyed many Surrey residents. So it's a good sample size. What jumps out at you from those poll results?
Well, I think there's a few things, but maybe the first thing that I noticed from that poll is just the appetite for change that there seems to be in Surrey. I think they found that 76% of people said they wanted a change in council, and that's compared to 56% in Metro Vancouver overall. So that's 3/4 of the voters that were surveyed. So yeah, that was the first thing that jumped out. There's a few other things. We'll probably get to those.
Sure. Yeah, well, certainly Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum elected in 2018, and he got elected promising to replace the RCMP in Surrey with a Surrey City Police Force. And he's campaigned certainly this time around on the fact that the transition is well underway. He talks a lot about it in his campaign literature and out there. And he also promised to extend SkyTrain to Surrey instead of building light rail. And there's certainly strong support, I think, in the poll for more SkyTrain in Surrey. That came through. But why do you think, I mean, the policing issue, he's not faring so well. What's the poll telling you about that?
Yeah, that was surprising. I think 53% of the people surveyed said that they were in opposition to the transition to the creation of the Surrey police force, a municipal police force. And then I think Leger followed that up with another question asking, would you reverse the transition? And 51% of people said they would actually reverse it. So they're not just saying that they're in opposition, but they would actually like to reverse it, which I would think that's pretty significant, because this has been underway for 4 years. Like you said, the 2018 election, this was an issue, and I think it was Surrey, the new Surrey Council at that time. It was their one of the first things that they did after they were sworn into office was to create the Surrey Police Service. So
well, and I think they voted unanimously to do that, including Brenda Locke, who's now, of course, running. I think she's the one mayoral candidate who's promising to reverse course. The others say they'll talk about it, I guess, or hold a referendum. But yes, she's the only one who's firmly committed to reversing course. But why do you think, if McCallum got elected 4 years ago on this promise, why is it hurting him so badly this time around?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, there's the issues around transparency at City Hall that seem to keep coming up, and I think that's some of the reasons that some of the councillors who were elected under his slate, under the Safe Surrey coalition, actually left that coalition, and then some of them, like Locke, began speaking out against that police transition that she had voted in favor of. So I think some of the issues around transparency, timeline, budgeting, that the cost of the transition have changed. They certainly changed some politicians' minds, and I'm thinking possibly voters' minds as well. It remains to be seen how voters what they'll do with that issue, but the poll is certainly showing that, that it's a significant one in Surrey.
Right. And the other thing I thought was interesting in that poll is that there's relatively high name recognition for all these parties that are running this time around. It's very crowded field at the top of the mayoral ballot with McCallum, Locke, Gordie Hogue, Suk Dhaliwal, Ginny Sims. Those, I guess, are the most prominent ones. It's usually you get, as you know, 2 or 3 maybe running against each other. So what might this mean for vote splitting on election day? Like, how does it play out?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I spoke to Hamish Telford. He's a political scientist at the University of the Fraser Valley. And he said that could provide a path for McCallum if the votes, he has his supporters, they're pretty loyal. And if there's this appetite for change, but that appetite for change doesn't settle on one person, if it's split between several strong candidates, several strong challengers, that kind of leaves room for him to win that way. Not with a majority of the vote, but with enough of the vote to win.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting way that the police transition could play out in the vote.
And we know, of course, that voter turnout is very low historically for civic elections. And if we have another sunny weekend, it might be even lower. So that, again, plays into the hands. It makes it difficult to predict, even though our poll, the Leger poll, does show Locke well ahead of everybody else, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So I spoke to Steve Mossop, who is the Leger, who helped us with this poll. And he said there's about 36% of voters that are still undecided. And so while Locke does have, I think, 25% in this poll, it's unknown what those undecided voters will do and where they will land. Because that 36%, if they all went to one candidate, that would make a huge difference. But if they're distributed among the candidates, you could see Locke pulling ahead. It kind of, that undecided vote makes it really interesting and a little bit unknown what will happen on election night.
The other, I guess, complicating factor I always find in civic elections, unlike provincial elections, where if you win a majority of seats, you elect a premier and a government that works together because they're like-minded. Whereas on council, you can elect a mayor from one party and a majority of people from a completely different party and wind up with a very dysfunctional council. So is there anything in the polling that tells us where people are leaning?
I didn't see that in the polling. There was a question that asked people if they picked the candidate for mayor, and then sort of their choices for councillor went along with that, or if they just sort of chose based on who they liked. And it was pretty split. Some people do that. Some people choose the mayor, and then they I guess follow along with that with the councillors and the other members of the party, and some just choose who they like. So I didn't get a clear sense of that, but you've seen it too. Did you? I don't know. Did you see?
No, I didn't know. That's right. I didn't see it either. I think that's probably probably too much to ask of somebody being polled, like what they're going to do with their entire ballot. I think, as you say, like a lot of people are still undecided, and I would expect a part of that is simply the sheer size of the ballot, and how do you select 8 councillors from that long list of candidates? So people probably still need to do their homework before Saturday, and I know both of us hope they do and get out and vote, because we do want them to do that. So where will you be on Saturday night then, Glenda?
So I'll be in Surrey, still trying to determine whose party to be at, and part of that will be determined by how the results come in and who's ahead and who seems to be behind. So
okay, well, when the polls close and the results start coming in, and even before, we'll start watching online for your coverage at vancouversun.com and theprovince.com. So thanks for doing this, Glenda. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Thanks very much.